The night air over San Diego was heavy with salt and danger, that strange electric stillness that comes before a gunfight or a heartbreak. Somewhere in the distance, a train cut through the dark like a warning, its lonely whistle echoing through the hills. In the barrio of Logan Heights, the streetlights hummed above cracked sidewalks and graffiti slick walls. It was close to midnight, and the neighborhood was quieter than usual. Too quiet for a Friday. The kind of silence that tasted like fear. Sofia Delgado walked quickly, clutching her purse against her chest, her heels splashing through shallow puddles from the evening's rain. Her phone battery was dead. Her bus had broken down 2 miles ago. She should have taken a different route home. She knew that now. A voice came from behind her. Low, male, taunting. "Hey, Princessa, you lost?" She didn't answer, didn't look back. Her pace quickened. Another voice. Closer. "We're talking to you, sweetheart." Her heart pounded. The alley to her left was narrow, unlit, but it was her only escape. She turned down it, running now, her breath sharp in the cold air. Footsteps followed. Laughter. She reached for the small knife in her bag, the one her father had given her before he'd disappeared years ago. And then, before she could think, a hand grabbed her arm. She screamed, the sound raw, primal, tearing through the night like lightning through silence. And that was when the world changed. A black SUV roared into the alley, its headlights slicing through the dark. Tires screeched. The men turned, startled, just long enough for the door to open. The man who stepped out moved like violence given shape, tall, black coat. No hesitation. He didn't shout. Didn't warn. He drew his gun and fired twice. The shots were clean, merciless. One man dropped immediately. The other ran. Sofia fell to the ground, gasping, clutching her knife uselessly. The stranger approached, holstering his weapon with calm precision. "Are you hurt?" His voice was low, measured, laced with an accent that rolled like smoke. Somewhere between Mexico City and Tijuana. She shook her head, trembling. Who are you?" He crouched beside her, his dark eyes scanning her face. "Someone who heard you scream." He reached out a hand to help her up. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was strong, steady. The sirens were already wailing in the distance. He turned toward the bodies, his expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here at this hour." "I was just trying to get home." He nodded once as if that were answer enough. "Come with me." She froze. "What?" "No, I can't." He looked back at her, and something in his gaze made her stop arguing. Not fear, not command. Something colder. Inevitability. "They'll come looking for who did this," he said quietly. "And when they find you, they'll assume you talked. You won't live to explain otherwise." "Who are they?" she whispered. "The men I just killed," he said, pulling a phone from his coat. "And the ones who sent them." He made a quick call, speaking in rapid Spanish. The way he said the words, crisp, clipped, absolute, made her realize whoever was on the other end didn't dare interrupt. When he hung up, he opened the passenger door of the SUV. "Get in." She hesitated. "Why should I trust you?" He tilted his head, the faintest hint of a smile ghosting across his lips. "You shouldn't, but I'm the only reason you're breathing." Sofia stared at him for a long moment. Then she got in. The door shut, sealing her fate with the sound of thunder breaking. They drove through the night, the city lights flickering across his face, sharp features, faint stubble, a scar running from his temple to his cheekbone. His hands were steady on the wheel, his silence louder than any gunfire. After a while, she said softly, "You didn't tell me your name." He glanced at her. "Because you wouldn't sleep tonight if I did." "I'm not sleeping anyway." He considered her, then said, "Commander Rafael Ortega." The name landed like a stone in her chest. Everyone in San Diego's underworld knew it. The Cartel commander, the ghost of the Sinaloa Wars, the man who built empires out of blood. Her throat went dry. Yes, why save me?" He didn't look at her. "Because your scream woke something I thought was dead." The way he said it, low, almost reverent, made her skin prickle. They left the city behind, heading toward the mountains east of Chula Vista. The roads grew darker, emptier. Finally, he pulled into a secluded compound hidden among the hills. Guards with rifles stepped out of the shadows, but lowered them instantly when they saw who he was. Raphael got out, walked around, and opened her door himself. "You'll stay here tonight." She stared at the massive steel gates ahead. "This is your home?" "It's a place where no one will hear you scream again." The words sent a chill down her spine. He led her, inside, through corridors lined with old photos and weapons mounted like art. Everything smelled of leather, smoke, and discipline. In a small guest room, he stopped. "There are clothes in the closet. Food will be brought. Sleep." She hesitated. "And you?" He turned toward her, his dark eyes burning softly under the dim light. "I'll be outside, making sure hell doesn't follow." He started to leave, but she stopped him. "Wait." He looked back, and for the first time, she saw something fragile beneath the iron. Weariness. "I didn't thank you," she said. He nodded once. "Don't. You haven't decided yet whether I saved you or ruined your life." Then he closed the door. That night, Sophia lay awake, listening to the sound of rain beginning to fall again. Somewhere outside she heard engines, voices, the low murmur of men guarding something too dangerous to name. Sleep didn't come. Only questions. Who was Rafael Ortega when the guns were silent? And what had her scream awoken in a man who'd built his life silencing others? She rose quietly, pulled on a sweater, and looked through the window. Down in the courtyard below, Rafael stood alone in the rain, his head tilted back, eyes closed, as if listening for something only he could hear. Thunder rumbled far away, and for reasons she couldn't explain, Sophia whispered to the glass, "Then let it follow, Commander. Let hell come," because something in her gut told her it already had. Morning crept over the San Diego hills like a cautious secret, gilding the horizon in pale gold. The rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy with salt and damp earth. Seagulls cried faintly in the distance, the sound sharp and lonely. Inside Rafael Ortega's compound, the world moved with quiet precision. Men in tactical black patrolled the perimeter, speaking in low tones. Trucks came and went through the steel gates. There was rhythm here, order built on violence, discipline born from fear. And Sofia Delgado woke in the middle of it. She sat up slowly, her head aching from dreams she couldn't remember. The guest room was immaculate, a single bed, a cross on the wall, a tray of untouched food on the table. She'd slept only because exhaustion had forced her to. The moment she opened the door, a guard in sunglasses appeared at the end of the hall. "Señorita Delgado," he said politely but firmly, "the commander requests you in the courtyard." Her pulse quickened. "Now?" He nodded once. "Now." She followed, barefoot, feeling the eyes of men on her as she crossed the corridor into the open air. The compound was larger than she'd realized, walled by stone, dotted with olive trees, the ocean visible far in the distance. It was beautiful in a way that made her uneasy, like a cathedral built on bones. Raphael stood near the gate, giving orders to two men beside a truck loaded with crates. His coat was gone, sleeves rolled, revealing forearms marked by scars and veins. His presence commanded silence. Even the guards avoided meeting his eyes. When he turned and saw her, his expression softened, just slightly. "You're awake." "I didn't have much of a choice," she said. He almost smiled. "You'll get used to that," she frowned. "I'm not staying." He gestured toward the wall of the compound, where guards were stationed like statues. "If you walk out that gate now, you'll be dead by sundown. They already know you were with me." "Who's they?" "The cartel I used to command," he said quietly. "And the one that wants me gone." Her stomach dropped. "So you're—" "Yes. I was that Rafael Ortega." The admission came like a thunderclap. She'd heard his name whispered in news reports, in hushed stories of men who vanished, of wars fought in shadows. "You ran a cartel," she said, disbelief trembling in her voice. "I ran order," he replied simply. "And when order turned to madness, I left." She crossed her arms. People don't just leave cartels. His gaze hardened. No, they usually die trying. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the caw of distant birds. Why did you save me? She asked again, voice quieter this time. He studied her for a long moment before answering. Because your scream reminded me I still had a soul. The words landed heavy, dangerous, honest. He turned away before she could respond. You'll stay here until it's safe. It will never be safe, she said, her voice shaking with anger. You dragged me into this. He looked back at her then, eyes like tempered glass. You were already in it, Sophia. The men who attacked you weren't random. They work for Morales, the man who took my place. He thought you were bait. Bait? For me. Her blood went cold. Why? Because Morales knows the only thing I won't ignore is a cry for help. She stared at him, her breath catching. You're saying they set me up? Yes. And now? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Now they know I took the bait. By noon, the compound buzzed with tension. Trucks left with urgency. New men arrived. Sophia watched from the kitchen window as Raphael moved among them, checking weapons, maps, codes. He was a man of rituals, every motion efficient, almost graceful. He caught her watching once. Didn't speak. Just met her gaze through the glass and nodded, as if acknowledging a silent truth between them. That her life was now woven into his. When evening fell, the air turned thick with heat. The scent of diesel and gun oil filled the courtyard. Sophia found him near the chapel, standing by a marble fountain streaked with moss. You built all this, she said. How do you walk through it without drowning in ghosts? He looked at the water, his reflection rippling. I learned to live among them. You think that makes you good? I don't think about good or bad anymore, he said. Only about what still needs protecting. Protecting? She echoed bitterly. You kill people, Raphael. I kill men who make killing a business. Her voice rose. And that makes you what, a saint? His jaw tightened. It makes me the consequence they forgot to fear. For a moment she said nothing. Then quietly, you talk like God and act like the devil. He smiled faintly without warmth. That's what they called me once, El Comandante del Infierno, the commander of hell. The name hung between them, dark and heavy. Then why do I feel safer with you than I did anywhere else? She whispered. He met her eyes, something raw flickering behind his restraint. Because hell doesn't harm what it chooses to protect. Before she could reply, one of his men approached, breathless. Jefe Morales sent word. They have one of ours. They want to trade. Raphael's entire body went still. Who? Luis, the boy from Ensenada. Raphael's hand closed into a fist. Luis, the youngest of his men, barely 20. Loyal. Quiet. He turned to Sophia. Stay here. No, I'm coming. His glare was sharp, cold. You'll do as I say. You can't keep me locked away like a prisoner. I can keep you alive. She stepped closer, her defiance trembling like a heartbeat. Then take me with you. If I'm already part of this, let me see it. Let me understand who you are when the mask falls. He exhaled slowly, studying her. You're not ready for that world. Neither were you, she said softly. That silenced him. Finally, he nodded once. You stay close. You do exactly as I say, she nodded. I will. They drove into the night again, down the old highway toward the borderlands, where the air grew colder and the moonlight turned the desert silver. Raphael's men followed in silence. The vehicles moved like a convoy of shadows. Sophia sat beside him, gripping the door as the road grew rougher. You think they'll kill the boy? If I were Morales, I would, Raphael said simply. And you'll still go? He glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Hell doesn't negotiate. It collects. When they reached the meeting point, an abandoned gas station near Tecate, the desert wind was sharp enough to sting. 2 trucks waited on the other side of the lot. Raphael stepped out first, his black coat whipping in the wind. Sophia followed, heart hammering. From the opposite truck, men emerged. And in the middle, bound, bruised, his shirt torn, was Luis. Morales wasn't there, but his message was. A man in a white suit stepped forward. His smile was thin, cruel. "Our boss sends his regards, Comandante. He says you've forgotten what side of the fire you belong to." Raphael's voice was calm. "And he says you'd die before giving me back the boy." The man chuckled. "Correct." The desert went silent. Then Raphael drew and fired in one motion, the gunshot. Echoing like thunder across the sand, the man dropped. Chaos erupted. Sophia dove for cover as bullets tore through the air. The convoy roared to life, men shouting, engines revving, glass shattering. She saw Luis crawl toward safety, Raphael dragging him behind a pillar, blood streaking his sleeve. And then, over the noise, she heard Raphael's voice, rough, furious. "Get her out of here." But she didn't move. She watched him reload, his eyes ablaze, his movements almost beautiful in their precision. In that instant, she understood the truth. He wasn't just fighting Morales, he was fighting himself. And if he lost, the man who'd saved her that night, the one who'd stepped out of the dark for her scream, would disappear forever. When the shooting stopped, the desert was quiet again. Smoke drifted across the highway. The moon hung low, pale and cold. Raphael limped toward her, his face streaked with dirt and blood. Sophia ran to him. "You're bleeding." He caught her wrist gently. "Not enough to matter." She looked around at the bodies, the burning vehicles, the endless night. "You call this protection?" He met her gaze. "No, this is the price." She stared at him. The weight of his words sinking deep. Somewhere behind them, thunder rolled again, distant but approaching. And Sophia understood. This wasn't the end of the storm. It was only the pause before hell followed after. The storm had broken loose again over the desert. Black clouds moving fast from the Pacific, dragging lightning through the sky like veins of fire. The rain came in bursts, angry, relentless, and cold enough to sting. The convoy was gone. The wounded had been moved to a hidden compound near Takede, and what was left of the gas station was just twisted metal and smoke. Rafael Ortega sat against the hood of a bullet-riddled truck, his shoulder bleeding through a fresh bandage, the rain washing streaks of crimson down his arm. Sophia crouched beside him, her hair plastered to her face, her breath trembling. The adrenaline hadn't left her body yet. Every sound still made her flinch. She pressed her hand to his wound again, voice shaking. "You're going to lose too much blood." He looked down at her hand, then at her. "You've seen worse tonight than I ever wanted you to." "You think that's an apology?" She snapped. He didn't answer. He just stared into the rain, his jaw tight, as if the storm itself was something he needed to outlast. Finally, he said quietly, "You killed a man once. You lose sleep. You kill hundreds and sleep starts losing you." Sophia hesitated. "How many?" His eyes flicked toward her, unreadable, enough to make God stop listening. She swallowed, then looked away. "You talk about God a lot for someone who doesn't believe in him." He smirked faintly. "When you've spent enough time in hell, you start praying for habit, not for hope." The wind howled through the skeletal remains of the gas station. Thunder rolled closer. "Why do you stay in this?" she asked. "Why not run? You said yourself the cartel would never stop hunting you." He didn't move, didn't breathe for a second. "Because there's something I still owe." "Oh?" Raphael reached into his coat and pulled out a folded, rain-worn photograph. He handed it to her. It was old. A woman with black hair, laughing, holding a little girl on her lap. The girl couldn't have been more than 6, missing one front tooth, holding a red balloon. "My wife," he said softly. "Elena and my daughter Camilla." Sophia looked up. "What happened to them?" "Morales," he said. "Before he took the cartel, before he tried to take my life, he took theirs. As a message." The storm seemed to hold its breath. Sophia's fingers tightened on the photograph. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He nodded once, but his voice was steady, calm in a way that frightened her. "I promised them I'd burn every man responsible. Every name, every house, every kingdom they built on blood. That's what I owe." She stared at him, something sharp and aching cutting through her chest. "And when they're all gone, What happens to you then? He looked at her, rain dripping from his lashes. Then I follow them. She shook her head, tears mixing with rain. That's not redemption, Raphael. That's suicide. He gave a small, broken smile. For men like me, there's no difference. Hours later, they reached the safe house, a small ranch nestled in the foothills near the border, surrounded by olive trees and silence. The electricity flickered, the wind rattled the shutters. Inside, the air smelled of old wood and gun oil. Raphael's men disappeared into the back rooms to tend their wounds, leaving him and Sophia alone by the fire. He sat heavily on the couch, his blood-soaked shirt clinging to him. Sophia moved behind him without asking, cleaning the wound again, her fingers steady despite the tremor in her breath. He winced but didn't pull away. You should rest, she said softly. I don't sleep well when it rains. She frowned. Why not? He didn't answer right away. Then, because that's the night they died. Her breath hitched. They were driving home from Ensenada. A truck rammed them off the road. Elena's body was found 3 miles away. Camilla's... He stopped. His voice cracked on the edge of the name. They never found her. Sophia's hand froze. You think she's still alive? He turned, meeting her gaze. Morales never gives mercy, but he does enjoy reminders. Sometimes I think he kept her. Sometimes I think I'd rather not know. Her eyes filled. That's why you saved me, he frowned. What do you mean? Because when you heard me scream, you thought it was her. He looked away sharply, his silence confirming what words couldn't. Sophia reached for his hand, rough, cold, scarred, and held it. I'm not her, she whispered. But I'm here. For the first time, his control broke. He closed his eyes, and when he spoke again, his voice trembled. You shouldn't be. You don't get to decide that. He opened his eyes, and for a moment, all the walls he'd built, the power, the ruthlessness, the iron, cracked. You remind me I'm still human, he said. And that terrifies me. Her fingers tightened around his. You can't kill what's already dead, Raphael. He looked at her. Really looked. And something unspoken passed between them. A surrender neither of them had planned for. The air thickened. The storm outside raged harder, wind howling through the cracks in the roof. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was raw, desperate. A man who'd forgotten softness, remembering what it felt like. A woman too lost to resist. When he pulled away, his breath shuddered. You don't know what it means to care for someone like me. Then teach me, she whispered. He shook his head. I'd only teach you how to burn. Later that night, when he thought she was asleep, he slipped outside. Sophia followed quietly, barefoot, standing by the doorway. Raphael was on the porch, phone to his ear, voice low and sharp. No, Morales is still alive. He sent his second. We need to draw him out. Use me as bait if you have to. There was a pause, and then his tone darkened. No, not her. She stays out of this. If you touch her, I'll erase every one of you. He hung up, and for a moment, his shoulders sagged, the first real sign of wear she'd ever seen in him. Then he turned, realizing she was there. His face hardened again. You shouldn't eavesdrop, she crossed her arms. You shouldn't lie to me. He stepped closer, the storm wind swirling around them. If I tell you the truth, you'll never forgive me. Try me. He hesitated, then said quietly, The man you saw me kill in the alley, the one who grabbed you, he wasn't a stranger. He was one of mine. Sophia's blood ran cold. Yours? He betrayed me to Morales, sold information about my roots, my men. He knew I'd find out, so he tried to use you as leverage. I was supposed to arrive later. He thought hurting you would lure me into the open. She stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. You mean that night? It wasn't fate. It was a trap. Yes, and I was the bait. He didn't deny it. The truth hung between them like lightning frozen in air. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Everything that's happened, me being here, you saving me, it was all because of him. Raphael's voice broke. No, it started because of him, but everything after, that was me. She stepped back. You think that makes it better? No, he said softly. It makes it worse. The rain surged harder, a violent drumming on the tin roof. He reached for her, but she stepped away. "You said I reminded you you're human," she whispered. "Maybe I was wrong. Maybe you never were." Then she turned and walked inside, leaving him standing in the storm, thunder rolling above like judgment. He didn't follow. He knew he couldn't. Because for the first time since the night he'd lost everything, Rafael Ortega realized he was afraid, not of death, not of hell, but of losing the only person who'd made him want to live. The rain finally stopped, but it left behind a silence that was worse than thunder. The safe house smelled of damp wood and smoke, the faint echo of gunfire still clinging to the air. Dawn came slow and gray, cutting through the curtains like a blade. Sophia hadn't slept. She sat at the edge of the bed, her eyes red, her mind unraveling every word Raphael had said. She'd been bait, her entire rescue, her entire captivity, every night of whispered half-truths. It had all begun as a trap for him, and yet, she still couldn't hate him. She hated herself for that. Outside, the world stirred. The sound of engines, men speaking in Spanish, weapons being loaded. Through the thin walls, Raphael's voice carried, low, precise, commanding. He was planning again, preparing for something. Sophia rose, pulled on a jacket, and stepped into the hall. The men she passed didn't meet her eyes anymore. Word had spread. El Comandante had snapped at someone last night, thrown a bottle against the wall. She knew that someone was her. She found him in the courtyard, leaning against a jeep, checking the sights on his pistol. His face was drawn, sleepless, but when he saw her, something in his gaze softened just enough to hurt. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I couldn't sleep. You should try." "I did," she said, her voice shaking. "It's hard to rest when you realize your life is collateral damage." He looked away, jaw tightening. "If I could change it, I would. But you can't." "No," he admitted. "I can't." The honesty in his voice hit her harder than anger ever could. "What now?" she asked. "You go kill Morales and think that'll fix everything?" "It won't fix anything," he said quietly. "But it'll stop worse men from replacing me." "That's not justice, Raphael. That's pride." He finally looked at her, really looked, and she saw something dangerous flickering behind his eyes. "When you've buried your wife and your daughter, you learn that pride is all you have left." Sophia's throat tightened. "Then what's left for me?" He didn't answer, because he didn't know. By noon, they were on the move again. The convoy cut through the desert like a scar, the sun glaring off the metal. Sophia rode in silence beside Raphael, her thoughts a storm that refused to break. After a long stretch of road, she asked, "Where are we going?" He didn't look at her. "To end it," she turned to him. "You mean to die?" He almost smiled. "If that's the price, then yes." Something inside her snapped. "You think that's noble? You think dying is going to make what you did disappear?" "No," he said. "But maybe it'll keep you alive." She reached for his arm, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I didn't ask you to die for me, and I didn't ask to feel anything for you," he shouted, slamming his hand against the steering wheel. The words tore out of him like bullets. "But I do, and it's killing me." The car went silent, except for the hum of the tires against the asphalt. She looked away, tears threatening. "Then stop pretending you're saving me. You're just trying to save yourself." He didn't deny it. By the time they reached Mexicali, the air was thick with heat and dust. The safe house there was smaller, more discreet. A single-story house painted the color of sand, surrounded by palms that whispered with every gust of wind. Inside, maps covered the table. Morales's routes, his contacts, his remaining strongholds. Raphael's second-in-command, a broad man named Vargas, was pacing. "Morales is moving north tonight," he said. "He's using the border tunnels. If we strike now, we can cut him off." Raphael nodded. "We'll take him alive." Vargas frowned. "Alive, after what he did?" "Alive," Raphael repeated, his tone final. Sophia stood by the doorway, listening. "Why not just kill him?" Raphael glanced at her. "Because killing him is mercy. I want him to see what he's built crumble before his eyes. There was something terrifying in how calm he sounded. Vargas left to prepare the men. Raphael leaned over the table, tracing the red lines on the map with his finger. His hand trembled, just barely, but enough for her to see. "You're scared," she said quietly. He didn't look up, of losing control, or of what happens if you don't. He finally met her gaze. Both. That night, they set out under cover of darkness. The air was hot and still, the sky moonless. Sophia rode in the back of one of the trucks, wedged between crates of ammunition. Her stomach churned with dread. When they reached the border tunnels, Raphael signaled the engines off. The world sank into silence, broken only by the click of weapons and the whisper of boots on sand. They moved like ghosts through the tunnels, flashlights flickering against rough concrete. Then came the first shot. A man at the front fell, the sound of the bullet echoing through the narrow space. Chaos exploded, yells, gunfire, smoke. Sophia ducked behind a crate as bullets tore through the air. Raphael's voice rose above the noise. "Push forward! Don't let him escape!" Through the haze, she saw him, Morales. Tall, elegant, in a white linen suit even underground, smiling like the devil at his own funeral. He shouted over the gunfire. "You should have stayed dead, Raphael." Raphael advanced, firing every shot deliberate. The tunnel flashed with light, filled with dust and echoes. When Morales' gun clicked empty, he threw it aside, laughing. "You can't kill me without becoming me again." Raphael stopped, chest heaving. For a moment, his hand shook. Then slowly, he lowered the gun. "You're right," he said. "But she can." Sophia froze. Morales turned, confused, just in time to see her step out from the shadows, a gun in her trembling hand. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear. Raphael's voice was calm. "Do it," Morales smirked. "You wouldn't." Sophia's hand trembled. "I didn't ask to be part of your war." "Then walk away," Morales said smoothly. "He's already lost everything. Don't let him take you too." Her finger hovered on the trigger. Raphael's eyes met hers, silent but pleading. "End this." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "For Elena," she whispered. The shot rang out. Morales staggered, shock flashing in his eyes. He fell to his knees, blood blooming across his white shirt. Raphael caught him before he hit the ground, holding him for a moment that felt like eternity. "Hell's waiting for you," Raphael murmured. Morales smiled weakly. "Save me a seat." Then he was gone. When it was over, the air in the tunnel felt too thin to breathe. Raphael stood in silence, his face unreadable. Sophia dropped the gun, her hands shaking violently. He turned to her. "You did what I couldn't." Tears streaked her face. "Then why do I feel like I just damned myself?" He stepped closer, brushing a hand against her cheek. "Because innocence dies slower than guilt," she met his gaze. "What happens now?" Raphael looked past her into the darkness. "Now I have to pay what's left of my debt." "Don't," she said. "You've lost enough." He shook his head. "Not yet." Before she could stop him, he turned and walked deeper into the tunnel, toward the light bleeding from the far exit. She ran after him, shouting his name. But the tunnel swallowed the sound. When she reached the end, he was gone. Only his coat lay on the ground, soaked in blood, and the sound of distant thunder rolling across the desert. Sophia sank to her knees, clutching the coat against her chest. Somewhere, the storm began again, and in its echo she swore she heard his voice. Quiet, resolute, eternal. "I heard you scream once, Sophia, and I will keep hearing it until the end of hell." She closed her eyes, and for the first time, prayed for the man who'd answered it. The desert was quiet for the first time in months. No sirens, no engines, no gunfire, only the slow, endless sigh of wind over the sand. The war had burned itself out, leaving smoke and ghosts in its wake. Sofia Delgado drove north at sunrise, the horizon painted in blood-orange light. Her hands gripped the wheel until her knuckles ached. Raphael's coat folded neatly on the passenger seat beside her. Every now and then, the fabric would catch the light, the dried blood shimmering faintly like rust. It had been 3 weeks since the tunnels. 3 weeks since she'd shot Morales and watched Raphael walk into the darkness. No body was ever found. No sign, no proof. The newspaper said Morales had vanished, presumed dead. The DEA said the Ortega cartel had collapsed overnight. The world moved on, but Sofia couldn't. She still heard echoes when she closed her eyes. Gunfire under concrete, his voice calling her name. That final look, the quiet promise of a man who'd already decided he didn't deserve tomorrow. She whispered into the silence, as if the wind might carry her words to him. You owed them blood, Raphael. You gave them yours. Now what do I owe you? The wind didn't answer, but the horizon shimmered ahead like the mouth of a new world waiting to test her resolve. She crossed into Arizona, trading deserts for canyons, violence for stillness. In Tucson, she bought a used motorcycle from a man who didn't ask questions and a room above a shuttered bar that smelled of dust and whiskey. For weeks, she stayed there waiting for something, an omen, a call, a ghost. But life, as it does, kept moving. She found work under a false name, cleaning tables at a roadside diner where the truckers called her Red because of the scarf she always wore. It covered the scar on her neck from that first night in San Diego, where her scream had split the dark and changed everything. Each day felt ordinary, almost peaceful. But at night she'd climb onto the roof of the diner, light a cigarette she never smoked, and watch the stars over the desert. She'd whisper to them the way others whispered prayers. I don't forgive you, she'd say, but I miss you. Sometimes the wind would rise suddenly, swirling the sand like a whisper of footsteps. And for a heartbeat, she could almost feel him there, watching, silent, unrelenting, the commander of hell, her ghost who refused to die. One afternoon, a man walked into the diner, tall, quiet, wearing a faded military jacket and a limp that slowed his stride. His face was half hidden behind a beard, his hair longer, streaked with gray. When he looked up, her heart stopped. Raphael Ortega.